point here is we're challenging a paradigm, a very important paradigm, which is the material body gives rise to consciousness.
Yeah.
Once you believe that, and then you see an animal die or your grandparent die, then you're like, oh, there's a limitation to my time on this planet because, you know, that body is gone. I see it decomposing. Yeah. So that's where it leads. So that's the paradigm that you must challenge and overturn. Where consciousness comes from, or, you know, all of these things that you mentioned are fascinating, but the crucial part of it is to release the paradigm that your awareness is arising because of a functional body. Yeah, it is likely the other way around. That's what the science says.
Well, one of the ways I've thought about approaching this, and my grandfather is in infectious diseases for a long time, and for my whole life we've had very rigorous, long-winded scientific discussions, and he's taught me a lot about the scientific process and formality of testing and double blinds and randomized large sample studies and all this. But when we get into consciousness is when we have the most interesting discussions. And I've always tried to, so I'm kind of of the school of thought of panpsychism, of sort of, you know, how Annika Harris presents it in her book Consciousness. I highly recommend everyone check out. But basically this idea that everything is consciousness essentially, and that there's levels of consciousness, but matter itself is conscious. So it's, you know, we are all one, it's all consciousness. And you get into specifics, but essentially though, I've always thought about this idea of post-materialism, or post sort of the Newtonian Einstein equations, that it's not that we have to necessarily get rid of those, and this is just my theory and opinion, is we don't have to say, okay, Newtonian physics and Einstein's laws of gravitation don't work and don't still have merit in pragmatics for, you know, all the things we currently use them for. It's just we need to evolve to the final sort of stage of truly understanding the most subatomic proto level of all of this stuff. And there's levels to this. Dr. John Hagelin has been somebody who I really appreciated a lot of his work breaking it down when you understand it, that there's levels to it. But do you think that it's possible for scientists to appreciate the current schools of thought that they were taught, but then evolve and integrate this new understanding of consciousness, of the most sort of proto layer of it? Because it's going to clearly be cause extreme cognitive dissonance. If you talk to a standard reductionist, materialist scientist, and I mean, TED Talks, you know, they got rid of certain Graham Hancock speeches for even bringing these things up. You know, this is a big no-no currently in the world of science. How do you find is the best way to bridge them, as, you know, assuming we find and continue to have more and more evidence that points to this new understanding, sort of this Copernicus moment? Do you think it's just having the conversation? Do you think it's just going to have to be hardcore empirical evidence that does it? How do you see that transition occurring? And what have you kind of already experienced with your own sort of going, you know, you've kind of gone through both worlds, it seems like, a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question, Gordo. It's almost identical to the question of how do you get a structural engineer to see Building 7? I don't know. You know,
right?
Some people see it and some people don't. And you know, my personal feeling about this is, I think it's a worthy pursuit of science to go after the kinds of things that you just brought up there. You know, where does it lie? Let's keep exploring.
Right.
But you know, if we spend the next set of generations or the rest of your life exploring these interesting ideas with the fear of dying, then you've like totally, marred this whole amazing life that Marcus Aurelius is talking about. You know, so like I am, I've spent a lot of time in school, and those things are fascinating to me, but they don't interest me. I'm more interested in bringing a person to challenge the paradigm so that he can live his life, or she can live their lives happily and without fear. Right. Without making that transition as a person and as a species, we are stuck. We're going to, like, if you believe that when you're dead, you're gone forever, you see everything in absolute terms, number one. Number two, it would be absurd, honestly, to share. I mean, we like to share because it feels good, but in the end, it's like, no, it's for me. If I have to give this up, I'm not going to do it. So we're always outmaneuvering ourselves for a little more because we believe time is limited, because we believe resources are limited. So unless we overturn this, in a collective scale,
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to be going in circles. Yeah, we're going to have, better theories about where conscious, like, what if, CNN comes up tomorrow and says, we've got this new theory for consciousness. It's, not materially based. It is absolutely, it's coming from the collapse of the wave function or microtubules or everything you mentioned. What difference does it make? See, this is the difference between believing and knowing.
Mm.
Make sure y'all head over to benjosephstewart.com, become a member. You'll have access to the growing library of deeper dives where I talk about all the stuff that I really can't talk about on YouTube. Make sure you get involved in the Discord chat. That's where a lot of the conversation is happening, talking about new theories, being able to interweave into the greater conversation that is how we awaken infinity. That's our highest potential. And I just want to remind you, you are the most powerful technology ever known to creation. Wield it like an artist with a conscience.